Mr. Gaye, you're a flight attendant,
Bingo.
and you want us to publish your book.
Yahtzee.
Oh, but the book is not written yet.
Twister.
And it is the story of your life.
It's called Larry Gaye, the unauthorized autobiography.
The unauthorized autobiography? But an autobiography cannot be unauthorized.
Or can it?
By writing the book, you're implicitly authorizing that it be written.
Define implicitly.
Mr. Gaye, was there ever a time in the past that maybe I'm unaware of where I wiped my bottom with 20 minutes of your life?
Define aware. And 20.
Who arranged this meeting?
I did, sir.
You're fired. And happy birthday.
AOL built in the house.
Careful, you made a spill.
I
That's
already
okay.
spilled something.
That's all right.
3 seconds in. Perfect.
So, Mark, 7th season.
Yeah, we are.
That's wild. Did you expect that it would go this long?
No way. I mean, no way. It is so hard to get a pilot picked up, let alone to get picked up for a second season. I had been acting for maybe 12 years. I had done many failed TV shows. Perhaps you're familiar with some of them.
Name one or two of them for us,
I can
please.
name 5. I can name 5. There was first a show called Fired Up, which I did with Sharon Lawrence and Leah Remini in 1912. Then there was, these are shows that I was a regular on. I had a show in which I played the title character, Conrad Bloom, which lasted half a season. Lauren Graham played my best friend. Linda Lavin played my mother. Then I had a show called Good Morning Miami, which was the most relatively on the map, and that was a season and a half, a fraction of what we've gotten to do on Royal Pains. I was on a show called 3 Pounds with Stanley Tucci, which is how we got Stanley to do Larry Gaye. That lasted an entire 3 episodes. 3 episodes on television, and then they yanked it. So to last
Is there
8 seasons
is there
a
a
miracle.
sense? Did you get a sense of being on Royal Pains that there was a different feeling amongst the cast and crew that it could have lasted longer, or is there really no way to tell?
There is really no way to tell. All I can say is that USA was a network at that time, which is now 7 years ago, that really supported their projects. I mean, they really, they had Burn Notice, they had Monk, they had Psych, and all these shows were pilots that stayed on the air and that they advertised and that they promoted, and they really believed in what they put out on the air, which is not true of many of the networks, the broadcast networks. The broadcast networks make 25 to 50 pilots, probably less now, maybe 25 pilots a year, and then they pick up, 10 of them, and then they put 5 of them on the air, and even those they don't necessarily believe in all the time, or they spend a lot of money and then they don't support them.
You have a marketing budget, but you don't necessarily have the confidence or people behind you being like, well, we only have these 4 shows or these 5 shows. We really like this one, so let's give it another season and see how it changes, how it progresses. But you guys didn't even really need that, though. Your series premiere was apparently one of the highest rated cable premieres of all time, right?
I didn't know that, but that sounds great.
Somebody read their Wikipedia this morning.
We did well right out of the gate, and I remember knowing after the 4th episode on the air, the executive producer, Michael Rausch, and I had a moment. We were shooting at some farm in Queens, and we knew our ratings had gone up yet again, and we had this moment because he had created a show that had been canceled after 1 season called Love Monkey on CBS, and so we'd both been through the ringer. We were journeymen praying this would be the one that would live. And I remember standing there. It was just the 4th episode of Royal Pains that had been on the air, and we thought we knew we had something here, and we knew that it was going to stick around for a while. But just because you know you're going to keep going for a while doesn't mean you're going to make it to seasons 7 and 8, which is really like very rare and the holy grail of television. So I couldn't be more grateful.
Now, how did you find out? Because after season 5, they picked you up for 2 seasons, right? They said, we're going to pick you up for
After
6.
season 4, they picked us up for 5 and 6.
They picked you up for 5 and 6, excuse me.
And then in the middle
7 and 8.
And then we were in the middle of season 6, and if I'm being honest, we didn't really know what was going to happen. We lived all of last season wondering and hoping we'd get picked up, and is this the last time we're going to the beach? Is this the last time, we're performing an emergency tracheotomy on a dog? And then we got picked up at the end of 6 for seasons 7 and 8, and we were so happy because we knew not only that we get to make 2 more seasons of the show, but that we get to say goodbye to it in the right way.
So is season 8 the last season?
We don't know for sure. I mean, we don't know for sure that it's the end. It's possible and probable because it's a lot of seasons.
It's a lot of content.
That's a lot of shows. That's a lot of seasons. But anything could happen, Now
you're credited as a executive producer on the show, right? Co-executive producer at this point?
That's correct. Wow, that sounds so good. I do nothing.
When did that start?
I've been a producer. I've gotten a producer credit for the entire run of the show, and then it went up to co-executive producer. I don't want to get into the unromantic nitty-gritty of it, but, basically you can get a promotion in your title as a part of the process of gaining some status and the show lasting a long time. I do have a hand in casting, so I am a producer in that sense. I will call anyone. I've gotten many of the actors who've played guest starring roles on the show, from Big Show the wrestler to Michael Rappaport to many others, to be on the show. But beyond that, it's not like I write the show. It's not like I'm calling up locations. God damn it, we lost the venue in Huntington Gardens. I'm not doing all that.
Do you have a hand in the writer's room at all? Do you, since you've been on the show for so long, do you have any care about where you see your character going or where they're going to take him? Do you say yes or no at all to what the writers come up with?
When we're on set and we're shooting and we're discussing a scene, I will have a hand in, whether or not, how we're going to make it sound natural or change the lines a little bit, but I don't, weigh in on the writer's room. They have their process, and I respect that, and they've done such a great job for 7 seasons now. I wouldn't even pretend to know how to tell them to do their jobs.
Has there ever been a plot line for your character that you've been like, okay, guys, I'll do that, but I don't know?
No, there really hasn't. If you want to tell me when we jumped the shark, feel free.
I don't
I'm
have a
thrilled.
shark jumping
Anybody,
moment.
you're welcome to tell me. Maybe you had a problem with this, Mark, because that wasn't so great.
Well, actually, season 3,
Yeah,
episode 5, Mark.
Do it.
No, I don't have
No, the one thing I was actually really psyched about was when Hank had an addiction to painkillers after he had a craniotomy due to an explosion that he was witness to and a victim of. And I thought that was kind of edgy. And I think our viewers were on the fence about sending Hank down that road. But the writers did such a brilliant job of protecting my character by making it that the reason I was addicted to painkillers was because I cared so much about my job, so much about taking care of people, that I had to try to maintain my schedule and my vigilant care of my patients rather than some more sinister addiction, which would not be appropriate to our show or our network.
Now, as I said before, you are probably one of the highest rated cable shows, one of the highest rated
I
shows
love it when
on
he says
cable.
that. I could listen to that all day.
But I would say, as you are one of the
Not
highest.
necessarily true, but it sounds.
Is it not true? I thought it was.
No, we've done very well, and I feel like we've had great years, especially like seasons 1 to 5. I think as cable television and the proliferation of shows and networks has grown, it's been a little harder. I don't think we've in any way taken a huge dive, but I don't know that we're at exactly the same numbers as seasons 1, 2, and 3. But in that time, in our heyday, for sure, we had really high numbers.
Well, I would say that at times when you had those high numbers, you arguably had higher numbers than things like Mad Men or early seasons of Breaking
Yes,
Bad.
we did. God, I love this guy.
These things are that are sort of lauded and discussed and poured over. And whereas people don't talk about your show that way, which I think is so interesting, considering that more people care about and watch your show than these other shows that are considered boutique cable. Do you ever consider that or think about that? Like why?
Yes, absolutely. Why does a show like Mad Men get more Emmy nods and more critical acclaim than a show that's clearly being watched by more people? But, that goes to an age-old difference between popular entertainment and what is considered maybe more artsy fare. And there will always be a divide like that. And, I'm thrilled to be part of anything that's either popular or critically acclaimed. We're lucky to get to do what we do, and the fact that anybody likes it is always a great gift.
You said that you work to cast some of the people that come on as guest stars. Who are some of the people that you've worked to bring on? You said Michael Rappaport, Stanley Tucci. Who are some of your favorite guest stars?
I loved it when Big Show was on the show. That was awesome. There have been more recognizable and less recognizable. Recently, it was a buddy from college who I found out this role was coming up, and I got to send him the sides and say, dude, this is just right for you. And he went in, he nailed it, and he got the part. His name is Bill Dawes. He's a really talented comedian and actor, and he'll be on. But I would have to think to remember every guest star that I've helped to get over the years.
Do you have any guest stars coming on this season that you can tease us with?
Yes, we recently were shooting with Vanessa Williams, who was fantastic. An actor named Ed Weeks, who's on The Mindy Project, was phenomenal. He plays this sort of Daniel Day-Lewis type of actor who is shadowing me because he's playing a doctor in his next film.
What is his Daniel Day-Lewis impression like?
He actually looks a little like Daniel Day-Lewis, and he's got that British accent, so he doesn't have to work too hard to have that vibe. But Daniel Day-Lewis, he is not, but he's a great actor.
I once saw Daniel Day-Lewis walking on that street, literally right
here?
over there, yeah.
Did you accost him?
I was so close. He was coming towards me. He was kind of limping, and he had almost like a Daniel Plainview style expression on his face. Like, did not look happy. And then he could see me notice him.
Right.
And I got really worried because I didn't want to say anything to Daniel Day-Lewis. And he started making that face that big celebrities make at you when they realize you notice who they are, which is like, please don't.
Right.
Just leave me alone. Just please don't. And I just sort of hobbled away and was like, called 5 people and was like, I just saw Daniel Day-Lewis.
Nice.
Because he's
and
Daniel
that was
Day-Lewis.
very respectful of you.
Oh, I was so close.
But I always wonder when he was on the set of Lincoln and he got a cell phone call or a text, and he's
Hello?
Abraham Lincoln. Did he get the phone? Is that appropriate?
When he was trying to work the DVR,
Yeah.
try to do it as pretend he didn't
What
know
are
what a
these
DVR
crazy
was.
buttons? What does this do?
What's the closest you've ever gotten to what you would consider method? How deep into the process do you go?
I like to do my research. I like to know my character, and I like to know the world he lives in. I mean, when it came time to playing this role, I followed around a bunch of doctors. I was even in an actual brain surgery watching a doctor perform surgery on a patient. Wow. And I think sometimes the dynamics that happen between actors, both on camera and off, can play into what happens, on camera. And I embrace that, and I like to feed that sometimes in the relationships. And I always find myself creating very tight-knit bonds with people very quickly on set because I feel like the closer we are, the better we're going to act together, the more trust there is.
The more you can play, the more
we're
you can
gonna be
take
able to
risks
relax.
and chances.
Yeah.
If you're gonna,
Like
if you
you
have
and me,
to
Ricky,
insult,
we hugged for like 15 minutes in the green room. It was nice.
it was actually kind of weird. He wouldn't stop hugging
No,
me.
but it was, and I think you can feel that in our chemistry today.
He won't stop hugging. No. So when you get on set and you're taking these chances, you're taking these risks with people, do you find that, are you the type of actor who can, you say you're doing a big dramatic scene, are you the type of actor who can sort of shut it off as soon as they call cut, or do you have to stick with it for a little while and sort of let it roll out of you?
Yeah, I'm someone who, like, it's resonating and it stays with me, and I don't like to mess around, bullshitting with people on set when we're in a dramatic mode. But I will share with you a moment on set where I watched a great actor, Liev Schreiber, performing a very dramatic scene in a movie I was in called Defiance. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's with
Daniel
Thank
Craig,
you,
right?
Suzanne Lindbergh. She's never seen it, but she's very supportive.
No, that's not true. She has
I'm kidding,
she has Defiance posters in her apartment.
Yeah.
She loves
Her
Defiance.
whole wall is littered with posters of Daniel Craig as a Jew in the forest, but which he was. But there was this scene where Liev Schreiber is playing this character. Zush was his name, and he finds out that his wife and his children have all been killed in the Holocaust, and he's just been informed of that. He's hobbling down this hill. He bangs his head into a tree. There was rubber placed inside the tree so he could actually do that, and blood is meant to come down. And the first couple of takes, it didn't work, but it was getting closer, and he was getting emotional. And then Ed Zwick, the director, grabbed the camera because he wanted to film the close-up himself. And on this one take, he's told the information about his wife and his kid. Liev is rent with emotion. He's sobbing. And I'm sitting by the monitor, by the way, like a pathetic fan, just watching every moment of this brilliant performance. And he bangs his head into the tree 10 times, and the blood perfectly comes down his forehead with tears in his eyes. And then he walks away from the tree, and then he comes towards Video Village, which is where we watch the monitors, where I'm sitting there like a pathetic, fanboy. And he just goes, all right, can you play that back for me? I just want to see what that looked like. I'm like, who are you? Who are you? He just stepped out of it so quickly. And,
What would it have taken for you? What would you have done?
I just can't turn it on and off like that quickly. I mean, he was like an evil genius. For me, I'm in my Sturm and Drang for days and hours, and people are like, Mark, we're not shooting that for 3 days, and it's just a different process.
Can you think back to the most nerve-wracking scene that you've ever shot, be it on Royal Pains or something else? Where
Yeah,
you were just
I'm thinking about a scene in a movie called In Her Shoes. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that. There was this scene with Toni Collette where we're in our biggest fight in the movie, where she's keeping secrets from me about her sister, played by Cameron Diaz. She's not telling me everything that she should be, given that we're engaged to be married. And I get out of the car and I say to her, I won't marry you like this. I won't do it. And I'm all huffing and puffing and very dramatic. And I remember at the time, my wife and I were having a little bit of a fight. And in the rehearsal, we had a great rehearsal because I was channeling all the angst that I was feeling about my wife. But in the shooting of it, the first 5 or 8 takes, it wasn't necessarily reaching the same fever pitch that it had in the rehearsal. So
had you made up with your wife by that point?
Yeah, my wife and I had made up. We'd had a little sex, and it was like, oh, we're fine. Don't need, you're great. Love you.
You were glowing without. You didn't realize it.
It was too good. I should have kept the tension alive. But we're in the car as we were driving up to this scene, and Toni Collette just turns to me and whispers, "It was better in rehearsal." And she pissed me off so much by calling attention to that fact that the next take was fucking perfect.
Do you think
I was just livid, and I just ripped into her.
Did she know? Like after you guys were done? Was she like, got ya?
Yes, totally. She was absolutely manipulating me, and it worked.
That's amazing. Have you ever had a director do that to you, or is it usually actors who do that with each other?
The director of In Her Shoes, Curtis Hanson, is a brilliant director. And I remember the first day we were shooting, there was this scene at the door where I'm knocking on Toni Collette's door to take her out for our first date. And I'm playing a guy who's nervous and uncomfortable on his first date, so I'm doing a lot. And I'm also on the first day of this movie that I really want to do well in. And so I'm pushing a little too much as an actor, and I'm knocking, and I'm doing like a Mel Brooks routine of a nervous guy.
Knock, knock.
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah, exactly. That's pretty close to what I did. And Curtis Hanson at lunch, he pulls me aside, and I'm convinced I'm being fired just by Mark, can I talk to you for a sec? Okay, I'll pack my bags. I'll see you at the airport. And he says, Mark, you do a lot in life, as you, and it can seem like you're confident, or it can seem like you're masking a certain insecurity. I said, okay, now you've cut me to the core. What next? He says, this guy you're playing is simple. He's simple Simon. Simon Stein was the character. He says what he thinks, and he does what he says. And you don't... I said, right, but in the scene, I'm nervous for the date, and I feel like maybe he's angst, and he's trying to impress her. And he says, okay, but you'll know what to do when you find the character. I said, okay. So don't plan it, and stop trying to do too much. This guy is simple Simon. And the fact that he believed in me enough that I would find it was all I needed to have the confidence to sit into the character. And on the last day of shooting, we were in Delray Beach, Florida, with Shirley MacLaine and Cameron Diaz and Toni Collette on set. And I finished my last scene, and he announces, as they do on a set, that's a wrap on Mark Feuerstein. And everybody claps, the whole crew. And then he comes over to me and he says, Mark, congratulations, you found Simon Stein. And that was a very gratifying moment.
Well, what he did was so smart because he gave you the direction and told you exactly, like he wanted you to tone it down. So he gave you that direction, and then he made it feel like you could find that on your own.
And he didn't micromanage my behavioral choices or my physicality. He just said, this is who this guy is, and I know you're going to find it. And that was what helped me to find it.
Now, when you're shooting a show like Royal Pains, I mean, you're shooting a lot more scenes in a day, right? Do you have time to find those moments, to find those nuances that you can on a film set?
It's different. I mean, on a film, you shoot maybe 1 or 2 at the most scenes in a day, and on TV, we're shooting 4 or 5 scenes a day. But we're always trying to stay... I mean, the character... We've been playing these characters for 7 years, so it requires a little less delving deeply to figure out who this guy is. And these characters are all somewhat closer to who we are in our daily lives. But we're always striving to make something great and dig as deep as we can, whether it's a dramatic scene or a comedic scene. And, you get actors like Paulo Costanzo and Ben Shankman and Resh Machete, and we're all competitive and talented and want to do well, so we're never going to let the scene sit at just pretty good. We're never going to settle for average. We're always looking to make it the best it can be.
So do you guys improvise at all? Because I was watching that scene with Stanley Tucci, and it feels like you guys are definitely coming up with jokes on the spot and playing a little bit.
Well, that's a script written by my friend Mike Sikowitz, Larry Gaye, Renegade Male Flight Attendant, and there were moments of improvisation on that. And by the way, that movie's coming out on Friday, and I'm very excited about it. This was a labor of love. This is my Rocky, ladies and gentlemen. This is my Rocky.
Can you say the title of that movie one more time?
Sure, no problem. Larry Gaye, Renegade Male Flight Attendant.
Pretty great.
He makes his own rules, and then he breaks them. And then, the character of Nathan, played by Danny Pudi, says, but if they're your own rules, why do you have to break them? And I just say, because I'm a renegade.
I think we have some time for questions. Are we going to take some questions? Does anyone have questions? I see a hand right here, 2 hands. Hi there.
Hi, I remember that Khloe Kardashian and Scott Disick were making a cameo last summer. Did you learn any cool tricks from them while they were on set?
Yes.
Any acting tips?
I learned how to expand your Instagram following, which is by Instagramming with Scott Disick, or the Lord, as he is called. That's one great thing from having them on our set. They were actually incredibly cool. Maybe that's why America has fallen in love with the Kardashians. She was very down to earth, very funny, very self-deprecating, and we were thrilled to have them on the show. They were awesome. We actually got to hang out a lot because they were new to the Hamptons, and we had been coming out there for years, so we took them out to dinner and wandered around, got some yogurt, and had a great time.
What's your take on the Hamptons? I mean, you've been there now for 7 years, right? How have you watched certain parts of the Hamptons change in the 7 years that you've been there? Does it feel like it's changed?
The Hamptons I knew in my 20s is not the Hamptons I know now. I used to go to clubs called Jet East, and go to those ridiculous clubs and share houses and parties. And now with my 3 children, we go to the beach. If we have the energy, we sit by the pool. But I know that sounds exciting, right? Life with Mark.
The beach or the pool? I don't know.
The beach or the pool. But I don't think it hasn't changed that much. The restaurants come and go, talking of Michelangelo, but beyond that, it's still the charming Hamptons.
Next question. We have one right here.
Mazel on season 8.
All right, my chevra, what's going on?
Just wanted to know, I read something a while ago, and I wasn't sure if it was true or not. Was it true that, I know you grew up in New York, but were you a wrestler in high school?
I was a wrestler in high school.
What was your weight class?
I was 158. I loved it. That was like, were you a wrestler as well?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a sport that comes to define you in high school because you spend so much time with these guys, and it is, let's face it, so homoerotic. I mean, we're wearing a freaking ballet outfit. Those singlets are ridiculous. The headgear, you look like, you should be in a mental institution.
Cauliflower ear?
Cauliflower ear, yes. Yeah. I still have problems with it. But I loved it. It was a great sport. It was great to me. I was the New York private school state champ. And it was my life, for 4 years of high school. And then I got to college and I decided to become a thespian.
Did you see Foxcatcher?
I did. I love that movie.
Did it represent wrestling well for you?
There was an element like the cult that wrestling can become and the camaraderie among those men on your team. But it was certainly a far extreme. I mean... We didn't just go up to each other and crazily start doing, arm bars with each other to actually communicate, which is what happened with Mark Ruffalo and Channing Tatum, which was kind of odd, but also a great brother relationship. I love that movie, but, my wrestling was more basic.
Less intense.
Less intense, yes.
Less psychologically traumatizing.
Exactly.
Any more questions? We have some questions right here.
Hey, so since you've declared it as your Rocky, could you talk a little more about Larry Gaye?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for asking. I would love to talk about it. Honestly, I would, because it's a labor of love. I have never been part of creating any movie or TV show that I have been in. And this was a script written by a friend named Mike Sikowitz, who's a comedy writer. He wrote for the TV show Friends, which my wife was a writer on, and so they knew each other, and that's how I met Mike. Mike had actually given me an idea for a short, which was the first thing I ever directed, called Piñata Hustler. He pitched me this random idea about a dude who crashes a 9-year-old girl's birthday party, gets online, destroys the piñata, and steals all the candy. And I made that. And then he showed me the script for Larry Gaye, and I fell in love with it. So I said, I'm making this movie. And I got Stanley Tucci and Marcia Gay Harden and Molly Shannon and Taye Diggs to sign on to it. And then I went to investors and I raised a lot of money that I was asking for strangers to give me to make money. What? What am I talking about? To give me to make a movie. And then I asked my friend Sam Friedlander to direct it. And before I knew it, we got the rest of the cast and we were shooting. We were shooting this movie that I loved. And I was getting to play this ridiculous character that I would never really get to play if I were left to the devices of Hollywood, because I'm not Steve Carell or Will Ferrell. So now I get to be for this movie that's coming out on Friday.
This is coming out on Friday. This is amazing.
It's coming out in theaters across the country and on VOD Friday. You'll all watch it, yeah? Yeah. I love AOL Build. Building connections. And an audience.
Was this your first time fundraising and trying to get a film off the ground?
The first time. It is so awkward to talk to a person and ask them to part with their hard-earned money to put it on a movie that is such a long bet, such a risk. But they did, and I'm so grateful.
I can't imagine how awkward that is. Everyone talks about how horrible it is to have to
I asked you for $5 in the green room, and that was uncomfortable.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely not.
We eventually gave it to me.
No, wait. I don't know why he's telling you that. No. Any more questions? Oh, Brad.
This question is from Periscope, and they would like to know if there's any television show out there other than Royal Pains that you would love to make a guest appearance on.
I would have said Homeland, but then I saw what happened to Brody in the end of season 2, so maybe not that. Getting strung up in the courtyard in front of a bunch of angry people. I would have loved to have been on Mad Men, but that show's ending, so no. I think Breaking Bad, but that's done. Right now I would go for a comedy, a ridiculous comedy like. And nobody's necessarily watching this show, so people might tune in. Big Time in Hollywood, Florida.
Great show.
That would be kind of fun. It's a great show, really great comedy.
A very funny show. Do we have any more questions?
We have time for one more.
Right here in the front. Sorry.
I need to do 2 more because I want hers and I want his. He's been sitting there with such a great smile on his face. I want both. Can I have both? Can I get 2? All right, this is like those moments in an auction at a charity. Can we get 2 questions? All right, we're both. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your question. I'm a huge fan of In Her Shoes. Simon was like one of my favorite leading men of all time. He made me believe that there are good men out there.
Thank you. I believe that there are.
But back to Royal Pains. Are there any assets of Mark that you bring into Hank and vice versa?
Absolutely. I mean, I think a TV is more a medium where the immediacy of who these actors are comes into play in the characters on screen because it's just such a fast medium. We make it so quickly. And, if you were trying to do Lincoln, the TV show, it would be very challenging to make 22 episodes or 16 episodes or 13 episodes and crank them out with Daniel Day-Lewis's process and the process of inhabiting, though they do amazing period dramas too, the show that we do where it is both dramatic and comedic and we have these medical emergencies, it just lends itself naturally to, and the character of this Dr. Hank Lawson who has good values, and I think I have relatively good values. It just has been a nice jibing of person and character, and I try to use all the best attributes of myself. I will never pretend that I will be as good a guy as Hank Lawson is, but I do the best I can, to inhabit that level of virtue and menschiness and goodness and humor, but we use what we have on the show, and I think Paulo Costanzo would say the same thing, and Resh Machete too.
Do the writers ever ask you what you would do in a situation and get your take on it before they actually write it?
In a medical situation? No.
Not a medical situation.
They have no interest in knowing what I would do in a medical situation.
I don't know. Operate?
I would, feel his pulse. I would give him an Advil. But yes, absolutely, when it comes to the nuances of a romantic flirtation or
like this? What are you doing?
Sorry, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know. There's nothing romantic going on here. Although that hug in the green room was fantastic, Ricky.
I can't get over it.
No, just the way you. Okay. I would say there's always, they're always looking to us to inhabit our characters in a way that is natural to us, and they're looking to us to breathe life into these characters. However, we would take being rejected by a woman, as I was in the premiere episode last night when I proposed to Charlotte, and I said, "Will you marry me?" And she said, and then we cut to the show because we know she just said no. She rejected me.
Completely misread the situation.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what acting is, that how we choose to inhabit those moments.
Well, your character handles it pretty well. I don't know if I would handle being rejected in a proposal that well.
I get to enact my real, portrayal, which is, self-flagellation off screen. But then we shoot the scene they wrote, and I have to do what they tell me.
Last question.
Hey, Mark.
Hey.
Good to see you. First time I see you, and smile just doesn't come off from my face. I'm curious, how did you get into acting in the first place? And also, is there a difference between getting into movies versus getting into TV shows?
Wow, that last one was a doozy. You saved it all for the last.
Yeah, that's gonna be. You go.
So
ahead.
I just need another hour at AOL Build. We're gonna be here for a while, guys. how did I get into acting? I think actors are all partly messed up in some way. I mean, why do we devote our lives to filling the void inside ourselves with the approval and validation of anonymous strangers out in the world? What is it about making people laugh and cry that fills something in us? I don't know. Maybe it's not enough attention as a second child. Who knows? But when I changed from being a wrestler and a football player in high school and a guy who was involved in lots of student activities to being an actor and getting to tell stories on stage and making people laugh and cry, I was hooked. I caught this bug that was like an addiction that I would, be able to follow for the rest of my life. And I just kept doing plays in college. It was the first play I did was freshman year at college, and I did 15 plays there. I got into drama school, went to London to study, and I was hooked. So I don't know what it is. I think it's different for every actor, but there is this romance when you start doing theater and the camaraderie among your fellow actors. And the first play I did was about two brothers, and I have a brother and this surrogate father figure who comes into their life, and I have a very special relationship with my father. And it was just so personal that it struck a chord in me, and it gave me a taste of something that I wanted to follow for the rest of my life. And so now here I am. And then getting to direct and tell stories from that perspective where you're not just focused on one character, but I will direct my 5th episode of Royal Pains this season, and you get to see, the story from every perspective, has been a thrill for me. And between movies and TV, movies you get more time and a bigger budget, and the story is not ever shifting like it is on television. You have your lines and your story, and that's what you're going to tell. And we shoot it over the course of 3 months on different locations, and you're on location with these actors, and it's very quick. So you try to form bonds very quickly. I mean, I did an independent movie with Luke Wilson and Olivia Wilde called Meadowland recently.
It's a great movie.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
That was at the Tribeca Film Festival. Oh, sure, thanks. Hey. And we were on set for a day. I was on set. I met Luke Wilson, and then we're suddenly playing best friends in a day. And on a TV show, you get 7 years, which is almost twice as much time as you spend in college with your best friends. So the relationships that form are so deep and so real that it doesn't take a lot of effort when you show up on set that day to give the verisimilitude of love and friendship and family. So it's a different beast, TV and film.
Well, all right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
AOL Build.